Hi, my name is Michael Dominguez, and I'm the President and CEO of Associated Luxury Hotels. Thank you for joining us for another edition of an industry update. We're excited to tell you where we think we are, and most importantly, I'm excited to tell you it's better than we thought we would be. You know, looking at it now, we are looking at an environment that, we are starting to slow down just a little bit in demand in the hotel industry, but it is no reason to panic. It is literally a level set. We're going back to where we were in 2019. And surprisingly, the monthly levels over the last 12 months have been really close to the record highs that we've seen for those months over the past few years. That's showing a lot of strength in our industry. And one of the shifts we are seeing currently is that we're now moving and starting to pick up the midweek. The midweek had been the piece that had been a little bit absent. So what does that tell us? It means group is coming back, it means business travel is coming back, because that's where the group would land. So it's very exciting for us to show some strength, and we're seeing group demand right now only 10 to 12% off of where we were back in 2019. And we know we're still missing some of the larger citywides that will be coming back at the end of this year. So it's exciting to know that real RevPAR is almost back to where we were in 2019 as well. So what does that tell us? We've stabilized and things are looking really good. And most importantly, the large urban markets are coming back. And we all know the large urban markets were the markets that had been lagging just a little bit. The future pace looks really bright. When we looking forward, we're still in a really good situation, and we haven't seen any slowdown. Most importantly, we know this strength is going to remain because there's very little supply that's coming into the market that's going to give us any breathing room. Now, that may not sound like a positive, but it is a positive if you're going to be slowing down, knowing that we don't have new demand coming in. We also don't expect that new demand to pick up anytime quickly, only because of what's happening with interest rates and costs to buy. So that's really good news for us to know this compression is going to last. The challenge we're having though, you're going to see the hotels are going to start to really feel the pressure around margins. It's harder to become more profitable, even with these record revenues, only because costs have become so expensive. Most of it being labor, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. So let's talk about the overall economy and what we know is happening. So there's good news and bad news everywhere. Here's the good news: inflation is coming down. Now that is a really good news. Unfortunately, it's at a level that's still one of the highest levels we've seen in 40 years. It's going the right direction. Rate of growth is slowing down. And that would be the one thing I would emphasize both in the hotel side of it and in the economy side of it, specifically around inflation. It's all about the rate of growth that is slowing down. Doesn't mean we're going negative, but it does mean we're headed the right direction. Most importantly, right now, one of the reasons that inflation has felt really sticky is because it's labor. The labor inflation is what is going to be a little stickier as we work our way through it, because that's inflation that unfortunately is going to be here for some time. It's not going backwards. Good news and bad news. We've really increased wages, specifically in our industry. The hospitality industry, the hotel industry alone, we've increased wages by 24% over the last 3 years, on the average 8.1%. Now that far exceeds overall industry, which means that expense is going to be tied in, and that's not going anywhere, and it's going to be something we're going to have to deal with. The consumer has been resilient through all of this, which is surprising, but it's what's kept everything going. We have a consumer that continues to spend, specifically in the luxury segment. If there's a word that I could leave you with, it's bifurcated. Everything has been bifurcated. You think about our industry, it was bifurcated in our recovery, and that the urban markets had not recovered. Most of the resort markets had. Very bifurcated in its nature. You look at our economy right now, it's bifurcated. We have certain areas that are doing really well, certain areas that aren't. If you look at spending, it's bifurcated. It's luxury versus mid-tier and bargain shopping, and you're seeing it in retail numbers. There's a reason that you will see major retail or bargain retail actually declining, yet companies like Louis Vuitton setting all-time records. Why? Because we do have a split between luxury spend and retail spend. And right now in the luxury spend, this is really good for our industry. The third largest luxury spend is travel. And that is what we are seeing in our industry. Travel continues to be something that continues to pick up steam. We are seeing a consumer that is starting to spend through that extra savings that we have mentioned in other updates. Now here's the thing, that spending is bifurcated. It is the lowest 2 quintiles that have spent through most of that savings, while the upper 3 quintiles still have a lot of it. What does that mean? Luxury travel, still going to be really, really positive moving forward. Food and beverage, one of my favorite topics and something we always talk about. Very much like inflation, all of those increases are now coming the right direction. However, they're still one of the highest rates we've seen as far as inflated food pricing that we've seen in the last 30 years. Things that are on the horizon that we know are they're going to keep these costs elevated. We actually have a hay shortage right now, and that hay shortage has been caused by droughts in the upper Midwest, in the mountain states over the last few years. So what does that mean? We have an increase in alfalfa and hay by about 22%. The reason that matters, we feed a lot of our cattle hay. That means that cattle becomes more expensive, and if you look at all proteins today, they're more expensive. Whether it's beef, whether it's chicken, whether it's poultry, whether it's fish, everything is starting to increase, and that is going to be there for a while, and that's going to continue to keep pressure on food and beverage. But there is some good news. Eggs are finally coming down. And eggs are finally coming down because, again, we now have a population of chickens that has really reborn and been reborn very quickly. That's the positive. They multiply very quickly, even though we had to put down over 54 million birds because of a bird flu. Positive is we're starting to see that reflected in egg pricing. I'm going to leave you with some optimism, and there's quite a bit to go around. First, the Wall Street Journal had an article a couple of weeks ago. And most importantly, they're expecting a record summer when it comes to travel. So that does not jive with what we hear about an oncoming recession, people slowing down, people feeling it. Not that that's not true, but what we were finding is, for once in any cycle that I can remember, travel is not something that is optional. Travel is something that is necessary. It is essential for most people, and that has really benefited our industry as a whole. International travel is coming back. That's a real positive. We're now over 80% of that international audience that we had seen pre-pandemic. And most importantly, when you look at the chief executive and you look at the CEO indicator and what their optimism looks like over the next 12 months, it hasn't changed. It's still extremely positive, and we don't see a negative. Most importantly, services continue to increase. Even though our spending on goods has slowed down, that really has to lend towards travel. It has to lend to a luxury audience. And it goes back to my statement that for once, that travel is not something that is optional, it is mandatory. So that is the horizon overlooking the next couple of months. I'm very optimistic. Does not mean we don't have headwinds, but overall we're seeing an economy and a consumer specifically that is extremely resilient, and that's all good news for all of us. Thank you for joining us, and we hope you have a wonderful summer.